All right. What a pleasure. What a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much to Kathy and CCL and all the hosts for this. What a pleasure. I'm here with Ava De Leon, and let's play together with this global simulator to think global and then act national and explore some different futures. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to share my screen and pull up this simulator. It is freely available in 21 languages, including Francais here, and you can play with it as you like after this. But for now, the basic idea is that we're going to be able to play out different futures to create net zero futures or temperature below 2 degrees by 2100. And the gift of this breakthrough in technology is that when you make changes such as insulating buildings and improving industry, it operates really fast. So you'll see emissions come down globally, temperature will change, and then we can go look at a range of impacts. In fact, that's where we really should start, and maybe just calling out and asking to you all if someone wants to suggest what are the impacts that you would want to look at the most that we can make better in this exercise. You can see over here on the right, I hope that we can look at heat in locations, heat and humidity, the frequency of heat, populations exposed to hurricanes and typhoons, air quality. Way down here is wildfire danger days, malaria and dengue, not a big problem where you all are, ocean health, economic losses, biodiversity. What shall we play with? What are some impacts that we want to make better here in the simulator? Ocean acidification. What do you like? Can't hear yet. Maybe you're muted, but if you're talking,
We have
Biodiversity.
biodiversity. So biodiversity, the best way to measure it is here with just how species are doing. And here we can see what percentage of species are losing more than half of their range because of changes in ecosystems. And we're mammals, it's up to 24%, birds 23%. And then this gray line here is we've already lost 3% of species have lost more than half of their range due to warming. And the idea, of course, will be to get that 24% down a lot. But this is what we're facing by 2100 heading into the future because of these big changes in ecosystems. And these are the numbers of shifts of ecosystems, such as boreal evergreen changing to temperate coniferous forest or things like that. And we can see this is the overall area where it's shifting a full ecosystem type. Right now we're sitting here where this many, what is it? Excuse me, measured in million hectares have already changed. This is the curve of where things are headed. So the challenge is to make that better. So that's what's driving the biodiversity challenge. What's another impact that we should look at before we start to make things a little better?
Forest fires?
Forest fires.
Forest fires. We were able to tap into some of the Earth system models here and look at the change in wildfire danger days from warming. And this shows the change here. I'm going to go back. This is 2100, and we've built our plans for forests, say 25 years ago when the temperature was below 1 degree C globally. And it was only this part of Canada that had over a week of wildfire danger days per year. And what we've witnessed, what you have all done your best to manage, has been this change 2010, 2020, 2030. This is where we're going at 1.5, then 2040, 2050 at 2 degrees. And then we're starting to see that shift particularly in some of these areas. You can see Calgary, Winnipeg, Regina, like is more 2 weeks to a month is that orange area. And out by the end of this, or 2080, 2090, what we expect to head to is many more areas of yellow and orange. So going from here to here. So this really sets the adaptation agenda of getting ready for what's coming in this relatively worst case scenario. We're not the very worst case, but this is a relatively conservative scenario where we don't see global strengthening of policy. So that's where things would be headed. Again, what we're going to do is create a different global future and then see how different this would be at different times. So those are some of the things you could look at. We could explore much more if you choose to, but I think given the time we have, we should play with what we could do to make biodiversity better, to help avoid those wildfire danger days by looking at some of the policies. And you can see at the bottom, there are 30, but they're underneath this, many more things that you could go and explore that you can't see here around carbon capture and storage, carbon removal, hydrogen, banning fossil fuels. Many policies are underneath this. So we're going to change some policies in the context of this future where we can see 2000 to 2100, where we expect, and this is mostly about China and India right here, to keep, even as we shut down coal, more in China and India and some other countries, we're building more. So that brown area is expected future for coal, oil in red, natural gas in blue. You see the expanding wedge of clean energy, wind and solar, and then bioenergy, and on top nuclear. New zero, we could imagine fusion, geothermal, thorium fission, something like that. And of course, added to all of this is methane and other short-lived forcers, other greenhouse gases, deforestation, and all of that adds up to this big greenhouse gas net emissions, which is the pollution that is causing climate change, and then temperature over there. So maybe just for a minute, let's get this going. Turn to the person next to you just briefly and say, as you scan your eyes over this, what you would want to imagine that the world does in clean energy, in fossil fuels, population, deforestation, industrial. So turn to the person next to you. What would you love to see tested? Very briefly, talk for a minute and think about what you'd like to see explored here.
What do you want to see?
Okay. How about we hear some suggestions?
It sounds like we all have a lot of ideas. So let's try it out. What do we want to see tested?
Carbon pricing.
Okay, we're jumping right to the. Do we want to start with another thing before we do carbon pricing?
Renewables.
Okay, renewables. Renewables.
Great. Great. So I heard renewables and then carbon pricing. And as you can imagine, we have many different sources of energy under here. Renewables, primary energy demand. This is, of course, the great news in the world, and it's China exports. And what we've already seen, here's 2000 to 2100. We sit here, and the amazing growth we've seen globally. We just heard that Pakistan doubled the size of its electrical grid, it exclusively with renewables, with inexpensive solar from China. They're the 25th biggest economy in the world. They're the fifth biggest installer of solar because China is so aggressively exporting their solar technologies. That growth gets us up to this 42. Here's what's expected is this continued growth. Now you notice it's growing fast in these decades, but starts to slow as we run into the limits of how much can be added to the grid without baseload or storage. So we're going to explore two things. One is just going to be continuing to make it cheaper. And it is the cheapest source of electricity right now around the world. This shows the cost of electrical production, the marginal cost in dollars per kilowatt hour. You see that green line? That's solar getting cheaper and cheaper. It got cheaper than coal and gas and stays down there. And if it got even less expensive, let's explore with a subsidy. So I'm going to subsidize it. That's what I do when I click on the right here, and we're going to get some pretty good growth in it. However, it gets really, really inexpensive, but the cost starts to go up. You see that green line? It starts to get more expensive as we are adding more of this variable electricity to the grid. So what we need here is storage. And underneath, if we're able to have breakthroughs in storage, that's going to allow us to grow more. And you see, as I do that, the green line on the top right comes down a little bit more. It stays less expensive. It grows more. Now, temperature came down modestly. It's not a silver bullet, and we're already expecting a lot of growth into the future. I'm going to show you what it did. It's able to make a dent into coal. It's able to make a dent into natural gas. So that's why it's helping reduce emissions some. And it's not doing anything really to oil. Of course, you can imagine, what do we need to do as another policy in order to really get into the transportation world with solar? But for now, it's helped a little bit on each. And the beautiful thing about this is that what it's also doing is helping energy affordability. So global price to consumers, average price of energy to consumers comes down because we're investing in an inexpensive source of electricity. So this helps energy affordability. And we can look very specifically at the price of electricity. Price of electricity will come down if we use this very inexpensive, I've got it right here, average price of, there it is, market price of electricity. So renewables, very helpful, not making a huge dent because it doesn't displace much fossil fuels, but helping with affordability, and maybe when complemented by other things will help more. Actually, what's that complement that I've been hinting at? What this renewables really needs, of course, to really grow more is more electricity demand. And I'll go there, that if we're able, I'm going to go back to overall greenhouse gas emissions. If we're able to electrify more, then in both buildings and industry and in transport, then we get more renewables and we get more of a benefit. So that combination, the complementarity of renewables with electrifying, because that is a way that we're also able to burn less oil, which we didn't get before. And I'm going to undo those last two things with electrification. Without electrification, we're still expected to burn the same amount of oil globally. But when we electrify, of course, we're able to shift some of the demand over to electricity as opposed to oil. All right, any questions or comments on that first test before going to your next one? Or reactions or anything about implications for you all? Any surprises in that so far?
Yeah, one. Yes, one.
Okay, so we have one surprise. Okay, yes. So yeah, several people were surprised.
I think this is
Okay.
why I assume that it's just because it's renewable energy that that's going to.
So yeah, it seems like the surprise is that you assume that because it's renewable energy, that there won't be any other problems.
I'm not able to hear what's being said, so if you can
Yeah.
repeat anything that I should hear, yeah, that would help.
Okay, why don't you go to the next scenario?
Okay, so renewables, the carrot, carbon pricing, the stick. So let's go back there, and I'm going to undo this, and then we can put the two of them together and see how they work together. But here's where we were before, and what carbon price globally would you want to explore? And we can explore anything you're interested in. We sit at $5 a ton. 25% of the world's emissions currently has a carbon price. The average is $20. So the global carbon price today is 5. And we can change that. It's going to phase in over 10 years, starting next year if we test it here. What price should we bring it up to? I remember that was the first voice I heard said, let's try a carbon price. What would you like to try?
180.
180. Okay, here comes 180, and maybe think, what do you think that temperature would be if the whole world had $180 a ton carbon price for a moment? Now, it's not going to touch methane and nitrous oxide and other gases, deforestation, but put a number in your head. What do you think temperature will go down to if I put 180 in here? So think, you're running your mental model, we say, you mentally simulate it, and boom, we go, there it is. Okay, so what did it do? It brought temperature down a full half a degree. Well, the powerful thing it did was the world really, because coal is the most carbon intensive energy source, it really phased out coal almost entirely. Natural gas, some, but it does get sustained for a while, and can survive some of it. Oil peaks in soon, 2030, and then falls fairly steadily. So this leads to the kind of transition away from fossil fuels, but it does it very soon. You may remember how slowly, when you use a stick, the stick really brings emissions down fast. I'm going to undo this and show that renewables are fantastic, and yet it takes a long time to crowd out the fossil fuel infrastructure. That infrastructure lives for 30 years. So we have what we call capital stock turnover delays when we use the carrot. But when we go back to the stick and we can get this direct disincentive to burn, I'll go back to 180, it really brings those emissions down very quickly. What does it do? It has another effect, is that it reduces energy consumption. Any thought about why? Anyone want to call out why is it bringing energy consumption down so much? People just use less energy.
Because it's expensive?
Because it's expensive, exactly. So what you saw before about price it to consumers. Like, this is the equity challenge, of course, is how it will boost the cost of energy. Therefore, it's boosting investments in energy conservation, energy efficiency, and that brings costs down. Excuse me, that brings overall demand down a little bit. So we're having several effects and an equity challenge along the way. But what a powerful way to get temperature to drop a full half a degree. And then when we combine the two, the stick and the carrot, then it helps even more. I'll get back and get to storage. We're going to boost storage and renewables. So now the two of them and bring in electrification. What we've done is we have the clean energy revolution, at least with electrification and wind and solar, storage and carbon pricing, and we're down to 2.7. Now, mind you, we haven't touched any of the agricultural, forests, and other land emissions, but we've done really radical changes in the energy sector. What would you like to try next?
Carbon capture and storage.
Carbon capture and storage. Okay, we've got several ways. There's the direct air capture, of course. I know there's an incentive. There's some incentive in Canada for this, which are like these dehumidifier machines that pull it out of the air, or we can capture it directly at the smokestack for gas, for coal, for bioenergy. Also, there's carbon capture and utilization to help find more oil. What do you like when you said that? CCS, which kind do you want to explore?
The latter.
CCUS?
Yeah, carbon capture and utilization.
Okay.
Fancy word for use.
So we have assumed, because of the fact that you pull carbon out of the air and then find more oil, we have not included it in the model yet because we assume that there's pretty much a net trade-off of finding more oil, which boosts emissions, and then capturing some emissions. So what we've done is, and I'm going to add it as its own test, we don't have that in the global model. What we do have is gas, coal, and I assume gas is the one that's the most widely used. So I think maybe I would go there. So would you like to try gas CCS or direct air capture CCS?
Dealer's choice.
Okay, so gas. Here is overall carbon dioxide emitted from gas and then captured by CCS. There's none captured by CCS. It's going to be blue when it happens. But this is global, and I want to reemphasize this. Not Canada, not the US. This is mostly about China, India, Indonesia, Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, South Africa, the fast-growing emitting countries of the world that are building the most infrastructure. So here we have gas. I'm over here, I'm going to bring in the cost of it. Cost of fossil carbon capture and storage. And underneath here, natural gas. If you scroll down, we're going to let you subsidize gas CCS. In the Inflation Reduction Act here in the US, there was, before it was stripped away, a $85 a ton incentive for CCS for gas. So what we thought we would do is put 85 in here and just imagine, what if the whole world had that incentive? Now, our take on what is the cost, and by the way, click on the little triangle, you can see where did we get these numbers for why we think today, oh boy, I wasn't supposed to do that yet. It's here around $116. So it's 85. It's more expensive than $85 a ton to capture a ton of carbon at the end of a smokestack in a gas-fired. Mostly, this is going to be electricity generation. It's also in industrial applications. It's $116. We're going to give them 85. And so when we test that, think about how much of the overall gas gets captured. In one electricity generating facility, you can get up to 85% in one facility if you were to install it there and do a new facility. However, when we run it globally at this price, this is how much we expect and most of the other models expect to see. And so the blue area shows how much gets captured and therefore how much doesn't go into the atmosphere. So what we see is a fairly small amount. Why? It's expensive is reason one. And people expected it to, when they imagine it spreading around the world, they expected the price to fall like wind and solar, where you have all of this learning curve, economies of scale improvement in the industry. However, you're not doing enough of it, and the learning curve is not steep enough that it's not getting a lot cheaper. Now, if you get more, it'll get a little more cheap, but it's not expected to capture much more than that wedge, and really not much by 2040s and 2050s. So it's very delayed. And one of the main reasons is you can't put it on most of the facilities around the world. So does it help? Yeah. Is it expensive? It's very expensive, and therefore not expected to be a big contributor to preventing climate change. That said, it will likely happen in some places if governments mostly are willing to pay for it. So we were humbled by this. We thought maybe there would be more, but we don't expect much of it. And when we go and look at the others, and by the way, when there's a model like this, you gotta make sure you're consistent with the world of other models. So when this is, we share every equation, we compare against all the other simulations that are out there. And so we want to go make sure that we're pretty consistent with others. And so when we go and look at these scenarios, here is what the other models, like this is the Austrian model, thinks there could be some more than us. The American model in green thinks less. This German model in orange, purple thinks less. So we have to make sure we're kind of in the middle of the road of others. So there it is on CCS. Too expensive, not applicable enough to make a really big difference. That said, here we were before. We can add it in and see if it helps some. Any surprises or reactions to that or discussion? Oh, and I see it's 8:30 already. How are we doing?
Well, if you have time, we were hoping you could do one more scenario.
Great. Yeah, and really, here we are at 2.7.
So we've had a request for a deforestation and or reforestation.
Great. Yeah, so let's go look at overall emissions from land use. So emissions from land use, and this is much in Brazil, Indonesia, but the dream, of course, is cutting some of these deforestation emissions. And there we were at 2.7. And if we're able to reduce those emissions, that is a clear another important 1/10 of a degree. Under here, we also have included some reforestation, which shows up as carbon removals. So underneath here, what if we're able to boost in green some of the afforestation and reforestation? So that's another 1/10 of a degree if we're able to plant more trees and reforest. And you can see now we're in this mode of chipping away at other things that could get us even lower. What else would we need to do to get down to 2 degrees?
Can I talk to taxi? Can you add
Okay. She's just getting one more. Andrew?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, first of all, anybody who has to go, please do not let us hold you hostage. We know you all have very busy schedules. But so there have been a couple of requests for a plant-based diet.
Plant-based diets, great. And one of the, that really points us towards methane. And we've cut deforestation. Now, plant-based diets are powerful in that they would help us reduce deforestation because you don't need to grow as many crops to feed animals, to feed people. But there's another set of effects over here on other gases such as nitrous oxide. And I scroll down agricultural emissions and food choices. So scroll way down here and food from animals. Right now we're headed at 30% of food from animals. What if, and this is less about meat and it's more about dairy when it comes to the impact of it. But if we're able to reduce this, you can see it's both methane and nitrous oxide. And watch, it's the yellow area of methane. Methane emissions are waste. That's like wastewater and landfills in brown. The blue is leakage from natural gas and coal and oil facilities. Now that's falling because of the carbon price. So it already is reduced. But if we could cut food from animals, look at that yellow area shrink, and food waste as well. Now, management practices for existing agricultural systems also can help if we have better practices with livestock and with crops. And that's already down to 2.3. So another set of important emissions. Now, with methane, waste and energy leakage also will get us down to 2. What else?
Anyone for one more scenario? Or if you have any other questions. Yes, so we have a great question. How do we get to 1.5?
Yeah, so the next things that stand in front of us, of course, the biggest, you could always look and see how did we do? CO2 emissions from fossil fuel. Climate change is caused primarily by burning coal, oil, and gas. And in this scenario, we've done a lot with carbon pricing and the green energy revolution. Really, what has not been looked at is more investments in energy efficiency. Buildings and industry help us a lot, particularly in the long term, and transportation systems. These are the things that get us at least below 2. 1.5 is a really big challenge right now when it comes to the momentum in this geophysical system. But with some carbon removal, perhaps like direct air capture and other things, we could imagine 1.8. And when we get down there, then we can go and explore some of the remarkable improvements. You remember where we were before. You asked first about biodiversity, and I showed you mammals losing 24% of them losing half of their range. Well, now it's down to 7. Invertebrates, not 50, but 14. These species are very sensitive to the warming that would be happening in the baseline and therefore benefit a lot from this much better future. You also asked about other impacts. I'll go straight to this one around wildfire danger days. So we were looking at this area, and we can see in a 1.8 degree scenario versus in a 3.3. And I hope you can see this big difference between a future where the world gets serious about reducing emissions, where we have some more than a week a year or 2 weeks in Canada of wildfire danger days versus the pervasiveness of more than 2 weeks to a month in these orange regions, all the way down in here as well. The big difference between an extra week or so of wildfire danger days versus not. So this is the choice that we make and the possibility when it comes to mitigating climate change. What did we see? There was no one thing. There's no one silver bullet. Even a carbon price doesn't sufficiently handle this. Instead, it takes many seeds to plant this garden. It took carbon pricing and the carrot and incentive of clean energy revolution, energy efficiency and electrification, but then also these actions in agriculture and in forests and other areas. And it's still possible to bend this curve towards this much better future, as the scientists have been telling us for a long time, to reduce emissions steadily throughout the century and avoid some of these worst case scenarios. All right, there is this better future. There's some of the main insights. What does this mean? What does seem to be some of the implications as you think about how to make something like this happen?
What does this mean? What are some of the implications? We've got one, we need carbon pricing.
Fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty.
One fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty.
Ah, yeah, and I didn't show you the fact that with that, you can go in here and even without carbon pricing, just say, we're going to implement the fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty right here by reducing oil infrastructure. Thank you. Other implications?
We need more energy efficiency.
We need more energy efficiency.
It is powerful, and it also reduces costs. Well said. Thank you. Others?
You need a full suite of programs.
We need a full suite of programs.
It really is a suite. It's an all of government, very broad approach that we find comes together to create this better future. Well said. Thank you.
I'm just curious, I saw there were like 2 filters you could do for permafrost and methane emissions.
Okay, so we do have a question. It looked like there are 2 filters you can do for permafrost and methane emissions. What happens with those?
Yeah. Wow, you guys got into it. I love it. Yeah, so one of the critical things is exploring assumptions. So you can imagine you've worked with spreadsheets and models before. Many of the results will change based on the assumptions you put in, and we allow you to change many of those assumptions. So underneath here, we can explore some of, this is, boy, the Arctic is very important in this, the effect of various assumptions on permafrost and cloth rates. That is, as the world warms, of course, we have a lot of organic material that has been frozen in permafrost. As it warms, we'll possibly release that could bring up temperature more or less. And we can explore how sensitive the world is to that. And here, the good news is that some of these slightly change. I don't know if you can see a tiny wiggle as I change some of the assumptions around you see that? So this is one assumption of like the effect of temperature on CO2 respiration. And if it's high or low, could possibly change the temperature in this scenario a little bit. The important thing in the sensitivity test is that it's not making a 0.2 of a degree change or a 0.3 of a degree change. We're seeing that assumptions in that area won't radically change these results. But this is an area that should be explored more and will matter post 2100 the most. Some of the tipping points or these positive feedbacks in the system really kick in after 2100. So these are things that you could explore, and more serious scientists dig in more to those areas. Other questions about the model or about implications?
As we start to depend more and more and more on artificial intelligence and the great amount of power that uses, can that be addressed in any way?
Yeah, so we have a question about artificial intelligence and the massive amount of power that uses. And
Yeah.
can that be addressed in any way?
Yeah, so artificial intelligence and data centers use a lot of energy, and they're bringing more energy demand than we expected. And we just got a small grant to add it to EnROADs. So in 6 months, you're going to be able to change assumptions for it. That said, when we look at overall energy consumption, We already expect it to go up with population growth and economic growth. And it's one of the ways that the world kind of expects to use more energy. But it's when you think of it as even more, you could boost this economic growth and say, these are the kinds of scenarios. You see the blue line? We could have more energy consumption than we thought. And this could be driving us up to have more emissions and therefore higher temperatures. So possibly we could get more. We don't really know yet. And the key, of course, will be to invest in as efficient as possible energy consumption when we build these data centers, which every company has the incentive to do. We're having trouble really knowing what kind of policy could address this challenge. Here in the US, there's some talk of asking for, if we have this kind of growth, making sure that it gets addressed with renewables. Some people say with uranium nuclear or new sources like fusion, if we can imagine it. So these would be things that make sure that even as we have more energy consumption, it's done with green energy. So there could be a requirement there. So that ought to be considered. Other questions or comments?
Did anyone ask district heating?
We have a question about district heating.
Great. Yeah. So with district heating, one of the most exciting things that can be gone is the effect of energy efficiency. So when you see this energy source, final consumption of energy, with energy efficiency, we find that we can really bend the curve on overall consumption with energy efficiency. Electrification can really help as well with use of heat pumps, et cetera. The most powerful way to do it is not just to make the heat pumps more efficient, but also if we're able to limit use of fuel-based, that's like natural gas, then what we're able to do, and look over on the bottom right here, you can see the yellow area is how much electric-based buildings and industry sales versus the brown, which is fuel-based, such as natural gas. With district heating, it can be more efficient. We also could have more electrification that could lead to less, and that actually brings temperature down because we're able to use more zero carbon energy. I hope that captured what was you had in mind. Other things on your mind that to test and play with?
Okay, they're huddling.
Yeah, we're gonna huddle over here.
G1, G2.
Yeah.
Okay, can you see everyone?
Yes.
Okay, so this has been awesome.
All right. Thank you. Happy to hear it. Happy to be helpful. Thank you for all you do to make this future come possible. Appreciate you.
Can you?
And remember, it's still possible. Here it is. Yeah. And I'm going to drop the scenario into the chat so that you all can look at what you created here.
Okay, tell them not to go away.
Okay, don't go away.
At Citizens Climate Lobby, we really like to respect people's time, so thank you for going over time. Are you still available? Because there's really super curious people in the room and they might want to one-on-one with you right now.
Yeah,
So
happy to stay. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you, Kathy.
So if anybody wants a one-on-one with Drew Jones, please come. And Andrew, this was sublime. We had some really important people in the room and great discussions, and you are an inspiration. And I love you so much.
Oh, I love you back, Kathy. Thank you.
I guess I can do a
I'll be
presentation.
really quick. Hi. Hi. When you were looking at energy efficiency with the buildings and industry, and you had the heating graph, I noticed there was also, at the very bottom, there was hydrogen. What is
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, hydrogen. So what's on your mind about hydrogen?
I'm just curious what that is, because there was electric heating and the other type with like
Yeah,
burning stuff.
and it's
What?
particularly in the building sector. Is it's on your mind?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so and when you I'm going to show you a few things about like how you could open it up and explore later. Um, there's this search here. So hydrogen production in different areas. And then there's where do you get it? And of course, hydrogen is not an energy source, it's an energy carrier where you have to make it with something else. You don't find hydrogen out there. They're looking for it. They call it white hydrogen. There's not much. Um, and it's being imagined in a variety of sectors. This this teal blue would be for buildings. Right now, it's used as a feedstock in some energy sectors and industrial sectors. This is what's expected already. And then over on the right is where we get it. And we get it right now, and you can click under here from gray, which is mostly natural gas. So you burn natural gas, you make hydrogen, and then you can use it in industrial applications. For buildings, people imagine, could we encourage it? Now, it's really expensive right now. But that said, we could imagine building hydrogen building subsidy and subsidize the infrastructure if you could take 35% of the cost off of it. And there it is being boosted. So this shows the growth here in the 2030s, 2040s, up to 2060. This is kind of doubling global hydrogen use. It's supplementing the feedstock use with building use. And over on the right, you see where we would get it. And we would get it from green. This is the dream, of course. We use wind and solar in order to make the hydrogen that goes to the buildings, then could get used in the buildings. Some of it comes from yellow, a little bit from nuclear, which is pink. Yellow is just coming from the grid. So you could just use it anywhere. What does it do to sales? You can see over in the bottom right, hydrogen, it's the green is just a little bit more. However, the dream of it is that it would lead us not to burn coal and gas. And when you go and look, this growth, which would be significant, is just shaving a little bit of natural gas. Do you see that difference? Like that's the difference, is a little less gas and not much less coal. So temperature really doesn't come down much at all. It was at 3.0, it goes to 3.29. So the headline is we could see growth of it, but it's so expensive and targeting such a small niche that it doesn't really do much for the climate. Many countries want to have a green hydrogen export industrial plan because they could use their excess wind and solar to make it, but it doesn't seem to be a major climate solution. So we're not banking on it to do much.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Richard, did you want to get on?
No.
Okay. Hi, how are you?
Hi there.
One of the things I noticed is when we increase the amount of renewable energies, it basically adds on to the coal that's already being produced and doesn't necessarily, to any great extent, bring down the amount of energy used. And so
Let me just check that. When we encouraged renewable energy, it did what to coal?
Well, I'm not going directly from here, but I've noticed, a lot of other scenarios that have been described by people that our increase in renewables has been great, but it hasn't drastically affected our use of fossil fuels. And so is there a way in this program that we can look at accessing energy reduction, not just through efficiency, but generally using less energy?
Yeah, so let's just clarify that, like, historically, over the last 30 years, we've seen an amazing growth in renewables and clean energy. And I would say, despite that, coal has continued to go up, and gas and oil. Now, mind you, they would have gone up more.
Right.
They've gone up. It hasn't actually led to decreases in coal, oil, and gas yet. And that's been very humbling. We had an energy addition. So I think you're asking, could we imagine and could we see what would it take to have less? And when we simulate more renewables, coal has already come down, and it would come down more if we had more clean energy. And with energy efficiency, of course, these are other things that would lead it to come down. But you're asking the right question, which is what would actually lead us to reduce coal, oil, and gas and therefore reduce emissions? So is that what you're asking, is like, how do we actually reduce those emissions?
Well, and more specifically, how do we reduce the per capita use of energy, period, regardless
Yeah.
of how it comes from?
Yeah. So when it comes to reducing energy overall, and I'll go back here to consumption, the things that are possible at the very base level, of course, are growth. So fewer people in the world, back here to economic growth, less growth of goods and services, because that really is powerful. Then we have these investments in energy efficiency. If we're able to steadily increase the efficiency with which we use the energy in buildings and industry, in transportation, those are some of the main things. And anything that makes energy more expensive, unfortunately, that's also an equity challenge. But when we have carbon pricing, these are things that lead us to use less energy as well. That's the kind of suite of, at this very high system level, that's what we have.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
For that.
Hello.
Hi there.
I was curious about whether EnROADs has any filters or anything for geoengineering.
Thank you. Wow. So many folks have come to us and said, please, here's money. Could we add geoengineering, particularly solar radiation management, to the model? And let me just be clear, like when I say geoengineering, what I'm thinking of is airplanes, sulfate aerosols, flying around the world, spray,
Yes.
bounce
SAI.
light back. That's what we could explore. The short version is no, it's not in the model, and yet it gets discussed a lot. There's a lot to say about it. How can I help on the topic? Because there are many directions to go. What's on your mind about it?
Specifically, I'm doing a research project on stratospheric aerosol injection.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that as like a geoengineering solution to emissions. Yeah.
And what would be helpful about it? Like my thoughts about it, or how we simulate it, or like how can I help on the
Yeah.
topic?
Maybe your thoughts about it in terms of like there's so much uncertainty with what happens after that period of cooling.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just curious to know, because it hasn't actually been practiced in the field, like what your thoughts are on its
Yeah. So two
effectiveness.
things. One is you can tell we like talking to this through the world, thinking about the future with simulators, interactive simulators. And one resource is have you seen this model yet?
No, this is amazing.
So, they were kind of inspired by EnROADs, the people who built it, to turn their big global models into this interactive. It is only on SAI deployment. It's called reflective. And what it allows you to do is start like you can go and you look in the bottom in the right, like basically aggressive cooling to minimal cooling, and it's going to allow you to explore temperature and then what happens to precipitation and a variety of factors, and really just learn about it a lot. So go look at this reflective
Wow.
simulator.
Thank you. Does it have anything about like is this global? Like if
This is
SM deployed?
global.
Okay, because not just in certain regions. Like this is.
Well, it also has, so here's Northeast North America and what would, what's likely to happen with warming and precipitation in two big regions of Northeast North America, so, and
Okay,
Northwest. So uh, check it out.
that's
Uh,
awesome.
and the key thing with this is that, um, we've added all of these impacts in the model. The challenge is that we don't know what we don't know
Yeah.
about what else would happen if we sprayed sulfate aerosols around the world. And not just like the deposition of those aerosols, but what are the other interactions of the world to these changes? We
Yeah.
know that that get in, some areas get improved by cooling and like less warming. But we also know that some of the impacts on some areas get even worse than with climate change. They're called sacrifice zones.
Yeah.
These are some of the challenges is how do we decide and how do we understand the trade-offs? Because it won't be a total benefit to the world. Who decides which parts of the world are even worse off under these scenarios? So
Yeah.
we can't model all of that, so we didn't add it to the model. So that's
Okay.
just a little bit about geoengineering.
Thank you. Thank you. This was super helpful. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you
Hi
very
there.
much. Hi, I'm Dr. Richard Denton. I'm with both the Climate Citizens Lobby, but I'm also with IPP&W, International Physicians for the Prevention of Nuclear War. We were talking about nuclear winter, and that last demonstration was very interesting. What is the contact information for that?
Oh, for the geoengineering one?
Yeah.
Yeah, so um, reflective.org. And if yeah, reflective.org. And it's a geoengineering simulator, reflective.
Okay, my second question is, I'm with a number of groups, the environmental, et cetera, and I'm wondering to get you to talk to them. Is that a possibility, to go onto a podcast, to go speak to other groups? I'm thinking of Rotarians for the Environment.
Yeah, we love doing that. And contact me. I can give you our email address or just support. If you go to our support page and put a note in and say that we spoke, uh, and you can put a note in here, find a facilitator or contact us and put a note in. We love doing that. That's why we're here.
Perfect. I will be in touch then.
Okay.
Two groups that I think of immediately.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work.
Well, thank you. This is wonderful.
Andrew, that's it, that's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kathy.
We love you. Thank you.